Brent had always liked quiet places. That was one reason he signed up for the Tenera station post. It was far from busy planets and noisy colonies. Tenera was a small moon with forests, rivers, and soft rains. The station was built inside a clear dome to keep out the cold air and protect the equipment. Only a few people worked there. Most were scientists. Brent was a field technician, fixing machines and checking the forest sensors. He liked walking alone through the green paths of the dome. The air smelled clean, and the sky always had a soft blue glow. One morning, Brent walked near the western edge of the dome. He was checking the fence and testing a broken sensor. The trees outside the dome moved gently in the wind. The mist rolled over the ground. He looked through the clear shield and stopped. There was someone there. At first, he thought it was another crew member in a suit, but the figure outside wore no suit. She stood very still, half hidden by the fog. Her skin had a soft silver glow, and her eyes were large and calm. She had long hair that floated a little, like it was caught in slow water. Strange lines moved gently across her arms, glowing and fading like breath. She did not look afraid. Brent froze. No one lived outside. Tenera was marked as a class for uninhabited moon. That meant it was safe to explore, but had no known life forms. Yet here she was, standing just beyond the dome's reach. The girl tilted her head. Then she stepped closer to the barrier. Brent reached for his communicator but stopped. The girl raised a hand, palm open. She did not touch the dome. She only looked at him. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, like wind through trees. His ear device tried to translate, and after a few seconds, it gave a sentence. Will you form a bond with me, human? Brent blinked. He was sure he had misheard. Before he could speak, the girl stepped back into the mist. In a few seconds, she was gone. Brent stood there a long time, back at the station. He told the science lead, Marla. She was older, smart, and always careful. She listened quietly as Brent spoke. Are you sure? She asked. Yes, said Brent. She spoke to me, and I think she meant it. Marla frowned. It's not possible. There's no one out there. We scanned the whole moon before setting up here. Brent looked down. I know what I saw. Marla typed something on her console. There are old local stories about a species called the Airy. Some explorers thought they saw something long ago, but no proof ever came. Some said the Airy were peaceful and lived deep in nature. Others said they only showed themselves to people who could understand them. Understand how? Asked Brent. No one knows, said Marla. But there was talk of something called the bond. They said it was not just words. It was sharing feelings, memories, even thoughts. It was something deep. Brent remembered the girl's eyes. He remembered how he had felt strangely calm, like the forest had touched his chest. He asked, has anyone ever bonded before? Marla looked at him and said quietly, there was one report. A man said he had bonded with a being on a distant world, but he disappeared before anyone could confirm it. The report was locked and marked as myth. Brent stood up. I want to go back. I want to see her again. Marla didn't stop him, but she warned him to be careful. The next day, Brent walked the same path. The air was cool, and the sky was pale blue. He waited near the same spot, looking through the dome. For a long time, nothing happened. Just trees, wind, and mist. Then she returned. She stepped out of the mist as if it had opened for her. Again, she walked to the edge of the dome. She looked at him with soft eyes. Her hand rose in greeting. Brent raised his hand too. This time, she spoke clearly. The device in his ear worked better now, maybe because her voice was steady. I am Leary, she said. I'm Brent, he replied. Leary nodded slowly. We watched from the trees. Long ago, others came. They brought machines and questions. We stayed hidden. Brent asked, why are you here now? Leary looked at the trees behind her. My people say humans feel more deeply than we do. We want to learn, but not through study. Through bond. Brent was quiet for a moment. What does bonding mean to you? Leary stepped closer. It means opening the heart. It means sharing what cannot be spoken. It changes who we are. Bren felt something stir in him. It was not fear. It was something gentle, like the first breath of morning air. He asked, "Why me?" Leary looked at him, her eyes calm. "Because you listen, you walk with quiet steps. The forest spoke of you." Bren did not know what to say. He only knew he wanted to see her again. Leary took one step back. "I must go, but I will return. If you wish, I do," he said. And with that, she vanished into the mist once more. That night, Bren sat by his window. The stars above Tenera were bright. He thought about what Leary had said, a bond that shared memories, a link that went beyond words. Could such a thing be real? He didn't know, but he wanted to find out. The next day, he would return to the forest again, not as a technician, but as someone willing to listen. The sun rose gently over the green hills of Tenera. The mist from the forest rolled across the ground like a soft wave. Bren walked toward the western edge of the dome once more. He carried no tools today, only a small recorder in his pocket and a notebook in his hand. He did not know if he would need them, but they made him feel ready when he reached the dome's edge. He waited. The forest outside moved gently in the wind. Birds flew low above the trees, and small lights blinked between the branches. For a while, nothing happened. Then she came. Leary stepped out of the mist, just as she had before. Her feet touched the moss-covered ground without a sound. Her long hair moved in the breeze. She looked at Bren and smiled. There was something peaceful in her face, as if she was never in a hurry. "You came back," she said softly. "So did you," Bren replied. They stood facing each other, separated only by the clear barrier of the dome. For a moment, there was silence. Then Bren took a slow breath and said, "I want to understand what the bond means. You asked me to form one. Why?" Leary placed her hand near the dome's edge but did not touch it. "Long ago, we tried to understand humans by watching them. But watching is not enough. Feelings do not pass through glass. Our kind does not lie or hide feelings. We share what we feel through the bond." Bren looked at her hand. "And what happens if I form this bond with you? You will feel part of me," Leary said. "And I will feel part of you. We will carry each other's memories. Not all of them, but the ones that matter. We will not become one person, but we will no longer be strangers." Bren felt a strange chill in his chest. It was not fear. It was something new. He asked, "Has any human done this before?" Leary looked at the sky. "Once, a long time ago." He came with bright machines and strong questions. He was brave but afraid inside. One of us offered the bond. He accepted. At first, it was calm. Then the bond opened. Something deep. He saw too much too fast. He grew confused. He ran. And we have not seen his kind since. Bren lowered his eyes. "That's why your people stopped showing themselves." Leary nodded. "We wait now. We watch. We listen for someone who does not come with loud steps." "Why me?" Bren asked again, not to argue, but to understand. "Because you feel the silence," Leary said. "When you walk, the trees do not pull away. When you rest, the birds do not fly. You leave no harm in your path. You look with more than your eyes." Bren said nothing. He looked at the trees behind her. He had never thought much about how he walked or rested. He simply liked the forest. It made him feel calm. Leary continued, "The bond is not forced. You must want it. You must open the door yourself. If you do not, it will never begin." Bren thought for a long time. He had come here to do a job, fix sensors, check machines, report small things. But now, something bigger stood in front of him. He finally asked, "How does it start?" Leary stepped back, just enough to show she would not rush him. "You must leave the dome. You must walk into the forest without fear. Only then can we begin." Bren looked down at the dome's floor. He had never crossed the barrier before. The rules were clear. No one left the dome without a full suit and station approval. The air outside was not harmful, but the ground was not marked. There were no safety paths, but rules could not explain the feeling in his chest. He nodded slowly. "Not today. But soon, Leary gave a small smile. I will wait. I will always wait. She stepped back into the mist and disappeared once more. That evening, Bryn sat with Marla in the main hall. He told her everything, not just the words, but the feeling he had, the quiet strength in Leary's voice, the peace in her eyes. Marla listened, arms crossed, her face calm but serious. So she wants to bond, Marla said after he finished. Yes. Bryn replied. Marla leaned back. And you believe it's real? I do. Bryn said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she stood and walked to a cabinet. She pulled out a thin file and placed it on the table. Years ago, she said, a man named Dallas wrote about something like this. He called it a living link. He said the forest had a voice, that it spoke without sound. Most people laughed. They said he spent too long alone. But his file was never deleted. I kept it. Bryn opened the file. Inside were drawings of strange patterns, notes about feelings, and a list of dreams. Dallas had described something like Leary, a girl with light in her skin. A question asked in a whisper. He was telling the truth, Bryn said. Maybe. Marla replied. Or maybe he only wanted to believe. I want to believe, Bryn said. Marla gave a small nod. Then be careful, and be kind. Some truths are soft. If you step too hard, they break. Bryn smiled. I'll remember that. The next morning, he stood at the dome's exit gate. He wore simple clothes, not a full suit, just a light coat and boots. He carried no tools, only a small token in his pocket. It was a piece of polished stone he had found on his first week here. He had kept it for no reason. Now it felt like a gift. He looked once at the gate, then stepped outside. The ground was soft under his feet. The air smelled like leaves and fresh water. The mist touched his skin like a welcome. The forest did not seem strange. It felt like it had been waiting. He walked slowly, step by step, toward the trees. And somewhere beyond the mist, Leary waited. Bryn walked slowly through the forest. The trees outside the dome were taller than he expected. Their leaves were wide and soft, catching the light like gentle hands. Strange flowers opened as he passed, glowing a little in the mist. Everything around him was quiet, but not empty. It felt like the forest was watching him, not with fear, but with interest. He followed no path. He simply walked in the direction his heart pulled. And soon, he saw her. Leary stood beside a wide tree with silver bark. Her hair moved in the breeze, and her eyes were warm. When she saw him, her smile grew brighter. You came, she said. I said I would, Bryn replied. He stepped closer. The ground felt safe under his feet, as if the forest itself welcomed him. Leary turned and led him deeper among the trees. They did not speak for a while. The forest made a soft song round them, full of wind, leaves, and distant bird calls. After some time, they reached a small clearing. There was a pool of clear water in the middle, and smooth stones around it. Leary sat on one of the stones and looked up at Bryn. This place remembers, she said. Remembers what? Bryn asked. She touched the surface of the water. It remembers the last time a human came. Bryn sat across from her. You said there was one long ago. Yes, Leary said. He came with a team. They wore white suits and carried metal tools. They said they wanted peace. At first, we believed them. What happened? Bryn asked. Leary looked at the pool again. Her voice grew quiet. One of us came forward. Her name was Elle. She offered the bond, just as I have. The man agreed. He was kind. Or he tried to be. The bond began. At first, it was strong. They shared dreams. They saw each other's homes, their hopes, their memories. They laughed together. It was a light time. Bryn listened carefully. He could hear sadness in Leary's voice. But then, she continued, the man began to change. He felt things he did not understand. He saw parts of us that were strange to him. His people grew worried. They said the bond was a danger. They called it unnatural. They pulled him away. Elle tried to speak with them, but they feared her. One night, they used a loud light that burned the ground. They left and never returned. Bryn looked at the ground beneath him. The grass here was soft and green. He could not imagine fire touching this place. What happened to Elle? He asked. She lived, Leary said, but her light dimmed. The bond left a mark. She still carries it, even now. Bren felt a deep feeling inside him. It was not guilt, but it was close. He was not that man. And yet the forest had remembered. I'm sorry, he said. Leary looked at him. You are not him. You walk differently. You listen. That is why I asked again. Bren took a deep breath. If we begin the bond, will I see what she saw? You will see what I choose to share, Leary said. And I will see what you choose. It is not about control. It is about trust. He nodded slowly. Then I want to understand more. Leary stood and held out her hand. Come. There is someone I want you to meet. They walked through the forest again, deeper this time. The light changed as they moved. The trees grew taller, and their leaves hung lower. The ground glowed faintly with tiny plants that shone like stars. Soon they reached another clearing. In the center stood a large tree with silver leaves and blue bark. At its base sat a figure. She was quiet, with long white hair and soft markings on her arms. She looked up as they approached. This is Elle, Leary said. Bren stepped forward. Hello. Elle looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, though it was a gentle, tired smile. So it begins again, she said. Leary nodded. He has come with calm steps. Elle reached out and touched Bren's hand. Her skin felt cool, like river stone. For a moment, Bren felt a wave of feeling pass through him. It was not pain. It was memory. He saw flashes of stars, laughter, a tall man with kind eyes, then fire, and a sound like breaking glass. He felt Elle's quiet sadness, not sharp but deep. Then the feeling passed. Elle looked at him with care. You carry no fear, but you carry questions. That is a good place to start. I want to learn, Bren said. I want to know your way. Elle gave a small nod. Then I give my blessing. But remember, the bond is not only joy, it holds truth. Even the quiet truths. Bren nodded. I will remember. Leary placed a hand on his arm. Come, there is one more place to see. They walked again, this time toward a hill. At the top, the forest opened and the sky stretched wide above them. Bren could see the dome in the distance. It looked small now, almost like a glass shell sitting on the edge of a world he had never known until now. This is where we watch, Leary said. We do not spy. We only observe. We wait for the one who listens. Bren stood beside her. And you think I'm that person? I feel it, she said. The forest feels it. Even Elle feels it. Bren looked at the trees below, the soft mist, and the glowing lights. He thought about the stories Marla had told him. He thought about the drawings in the old file, and now he knew they were not stories. They were memories waiting to be seen. I want to begin, he said. Leary smiled. Not today, but soon. The bond must start at the right moment. The heart must be ready. I'll wait, Bren said. They stood together as the light faded behind the trees. The stars appeared above them, quiet and patient, and though no words were spoken for a long time, something gentle passed between them. It was not yet a bond, but it was close. For the next few days, Bren continued to visit the forest. Each time he went, he felt more at peace. He spoke with Leary, walked among glowing plants, and listened to soft songs from trees that seemed to hum with life. There was no need to rush. The bond, Leary had said, would begin when the time was right. Inside the dome, however, things were changing. Marla met Bren one evening near the main control room. Her face looked worried, and she held a small tablet in her hand to Bren. She said, We just got a long-range signal from Central Command. A mining fleet is passing nearby. They've picked up unusual energy readings from this moon. They want to stop here and check for resources. Bren frowned. They can't come here. Not now. Not after everything I've seen. Marla nodded. I tried to tell them this moon is understudy, but the fleet has already changed course. They'll be here in 2 days. Bren looked out through the dome. He thought about Leary. He thought about Elle and the old pain she carried. If the fleet came with drills and scanners, the forest would be disturbed. The piece he had seen would be broken again. He had to do something. I need to tell Leary, he said. That night, Bren left the dome and walked quickly through the forest. Leary was waiting by the pool, sitting on a smooth stone with her feet in the water. When she saw Bren's face, she stood. What has happened? She asked. A fleet is coming, Bren said. They think this moon has something they can use. They don't know about you. They don't know about the bond. Leary looked at the water. Will they bring light that burns the ground, like before? I don't know, Bren said, but I'm afraid they might. Leary placed a hand over her chest. Then we must prepare, but not with weapons. We do not fight with force. We speak with feeling. We share truth. That is our way. Bren nodded. Then let me help. Leary reached out and took his hand. The bond begins with trust. You have walked our paths. You have listened with care. If you are truly ready, then come with me now. She led him deeper into the forest, where the trees stood taller and closer together. The air felt warmer here. The ground gave off a soft light. At the center of a small grove stood a stone circle. In the middle of the circle was a smooth stone bench. Leary sat on one side and motioned for Bren to sit across from her. The bond is not a trick, she said. It is not magic. It is memory, shared through touch, through light, through feeling. Once it begins, you cannot step away. Are you ready, Bren? He looked into her eyes. He remembered the stories of the man who ran away. He remembered Elle's sadness, but he also remembered the peace of this forest and the kindness in Leary's voice. I'm ready, he said. Leary placed her hands over his. Her fingers felt warm and steady. A soft glow began to rise between them. Bren felt his heart beat slow. His breath became calm. Then something opened inside him. At first. It was light, gentle, warm light that flowed like water. Then came images. He saw Leary as a small child, walking among trees. He saw her learning from the elders, touching stones that glowed with memory. He saw her watching the sky each night, hoping that a human would one day return. Then he saw himself, not through his own eyes, but through Leary's. She had seen him walking through the dome. She had felt his calm steps, his quiet way of sitting with the trees. She had heard him speak softly to broken machines, and she had chosen him. The bond reached deeper. I now saw his memories. She saw Bren as a child on a busy planet, surrounded by noise and buildings. She felt his loneliness, his search for quiet. She saw the day he first stepped onto Tenera and felt peace for the first time in years. Their feelings passed between them like wind through leaves, joy, sorrow, hope, and questions. None of it was spoken, but all of it was shared. Then the bond settled. The light between their hands faded slowly. They both opened their eyes. Leary smiled. We are now linked, not as one, but as two who understand. Bren felt a quiet strength inside him. He could still feel her presence, like a gentle echo in his chest. It was not heavy. It was not painful. It felt like sunlight resting on his shoulder. Suddenly, the ground gave a small shake. A low hum rose in the distance. Leary turned toward the sky. They have arrived. Back at the dome, lights flashed across the sky. The mining fleet had entered orbit. Small ships began to descend through the clouds. They moved in smooth lines, heading toward the open fields near the forest edge. Marla stood at the control screen. She sent one final warning. This area is protected, she said. This land is not empty. But no reply came. Bren and Leary reached the edge of the forest. The mining ships were setting up tools. Bright lights lit the ground. Loud machines began to scan the soil. The forest nearby began to pull back. The trees, sensing danger, bent away from the noise. Bren stepped out of the trees. He held up his hand. Leary walked beside him. One of the crew leaders saw them and pointed. There's someone there. Bren called out, Stop. Please listen. You do not understand this place. The leader stepped forward. We have orders. This moon belongs to Central Command. Bren shook his head. It belongs to more than that. There's life here. You must stop before you break something you cannot fix. Leary stepped beside him and placed a hand over her heart. A soft glow rose from her skin. The machines began to slow. The ground below them gave a soft hum. The forest itself was speaking. The crew looked confused. Some stepped back. The leader frowned. "What is this?" he asked. "Some kind of trick." Bren took a deep breath. "This is a bond between human and Aerie. It is not a trick. It is a truth." The sky above them darkened slightly. A gentle wind passed through the field. The forest did not pull away. This time, it stood tall, calm, and waiting. And in that stillness, the choice stood clear. To listen or to ignore. The soft hum of the forest filled the air around the clearing. Bren stood with Leary at his side. The mining crew's machines had slowed, their bright lights dimming. The trees, which had bent away from the noise moments before, now stood still, and tall as if waiting for an answer. The crew leader, a tall man with a sharp voice, looked at Bren carefully. He glanced at his men, who were unsure what to do. Their tools and scanners were quiet now, but the tension was strong. "What is this bond you speak of?" the leader asked. His voice was rough but curious. Bren took a deep breath. "The bond is a connection between two beings. It is not just words or touch. It is sharing feelings, memories, and trust. When a bond is formed, it means the two are no longer strangers. They carry parts of each other inside their hearts." The leader frowned. "You want us to believe that your friend here is some kind of alien, and you're linked to her?" "Yes," Bren said. "She is part of this moon's life, and she has shown me things I never understood before. If you continue with your machines, you will harm this place and its people. We ask you to stop." One of the crew stepped forward. "We have orders. We can't just leave. Our commanders want the resources. They say it will help many worlds." Bren looked at the man. "If you hurt this forest, it will hurt everyone. The bond is proof that this place is alive in ways you cannot measure with your tools." Leary's eyes shone softly. She raised her hand again. A gentle glow spread over the grass and trees. The air seemed to hum with power, but it was calm power. It was not angry or threatening. Suddenly, one of the young crew members gasped. He pointed at the ground where small flowers were opening their petals. The flowers shone like stars and sent out faint pulses of light. The crew watched in silence as the forest revealed its beauty. The leader's face softened. He turned to Bren. "I do not understand all of this, but I see you speak with respect. Maybe we rushed into fast." Bren nodded. "The bond is about respect, about listening. Please, give this moon a chance to live." The leader spoke into his radio. "Stand down, stop scanning and mining. We will wait for orders." The machines went silent. The lights dimmed. The forest breathed again. Bren felt the bond stronger than ever. He felt Leary's calm beside him and a new hope growing inside. Back inside the dome, Bren spoke with Marla and the others. They talked about the forest, the bond, and the chance for peace. "This changes everything," Marla said. "Maybe humans can learn from this moon after all." Bren smiled. "We already have." The days passed. The mining fleet waited patiently, watching and learning. Bren and Leary met often. Their bond grew deeper, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet moments. Bren taught her about his world. She showed him the forest's secret paths and songs. One evening, as the stars appeared above the dome, Leary asked softly, "Bren, do you still wonder if you made the right choice?" Bren looked at her. "Every day. But I also know that some choices grow stronger with time. The bond is not just between us. It is a promise to this moon, to protect it and its life." Leary smiled. "You are a brave human." Bren laughed quietly. "Maybe I am learning." Together, they watched the sky. The stars shone like quiet watchers, and in their light, the bond they shared felt like a soft whisper carried on the wind. The days on Tenera grew softer. The mining fleet, once a threat, became visitors who watched quietly and learned. The machine stayed silent, and the forest slowly returned to its gentle rhythm. Bren felt the bond with Leary grow stronger with every passing moment. The bond was no longer just a link between two people. It was a promise between two worlds, a human and an alien, a forest and a dome, past and future. One morning, Bren woke to soft sunlight filtering through the dome's windows. He felt Leary's presence inside his mind, like a gentle echo calling him. He smiled and made his way to the forest. Leary was waiting beside the pool where they had first met. She looked at Bren with calm eyes. "Today," she said, "we will share more than memories. Today, I will show you how my people heal." Bren nodded, curious and ready. Leary led him deeper into the forest. The trees here were older, their trunks thick and full of silver bark. The air smelled of earth and rain. They reached a small clearing where soft moss covered the ground like a green carpet. In the center was a circle of stones, smooth and glowing faintly. "Here," Leary explained, "we gather to heal. Our people believe that when the bond is true, the pain of the past can be soothed by sharing." Bren looked at her. "I want to learn." Leary smiled gently. "Then sit." They sat across from each other inside the circle. Leary took Bren's hands in hers. The soft glow began again, and Bren felt warmth spread through his body. This time, the bond showed him different images. He saw forests touched by storms, animals injured but cared for, and plants growing strong after rain. He felt the pain of loss, but also the power of healing. Then Leary shared her own story. She was not always sure she could trust humans. The pain left by the man who came before had shaped her fears. "But then you came," Leary said softly. "You listened without rushing. You opened your heart." Bren felt a deep feeling inside. It was more than friendship. It was respect and hope. As the bond connected them, Bren felt a small change in himself. He realized that healing was not just about fixing what was broken outside, but also inside. When the light faded, Bren looked at Leary. "Thank you for sharing this with me." Leary smiled. "Thank you for walking this path with me." The next days brought more changes. The mining crew worked with the scientists inside the dome. They began to study the forest carefully, learning to understand its life instead of trying to take from it. Bren helped to teach them what he had learned from Leary and the bond. The forest became a place of learning, not destruction. One afternoon, Bren and Leary stood at the edge of the dome, watching a group of young children from the fleet exploring the forest. Under careful watch, the children laughed softly as they touched glowing flowers and listened to birds singing strange songs. Bren turned to Leary. "Do you think they will understand?" Leary looked at the children and smiled. "They want to. And that is enough for now." Bren felt a quiet hope in his heart. For the first time, he believed the two worlds could live together in peace. One night, as the stars filled the sky, Bren and Leary sat together on a hill outside the dome. The forest stretched below them, calm and alive. Leary whispered, "Will you stay with me, Bren? Not just as a friend, but as someone who carries part of this world inside him." Bren looked into her eyes. The bond between them was warm and strong. He knew this was more than a promise. It was a new beginning. "I will," Bren said softly. "For this world, for your people, for all of us." Leary smiled, and the stars seemed to shine brighter. Together, they watched the night sky, knowing that when two worlds choose to heal, the future can be filled with light. The morning sun rose over Tenera, casting golden light across the forest and the dome. The air was filled with the songs of birds and the gentle rustle of leaves. Bren stood at the edge of the forest, looking at the place that had changed his life forever. The bond he shared with Leary had grown deeper each day. It was no longer just between two individuals, but between two worlds, the humans, who came from the stars, and the Aerie who lived in harmony with the moon. Today was special. The leaders of the mining fleet, the scientists from the dome, and the elders of Leary's people were gathering for the first time. They wanted to find a way for their worlds to live side by side without harm. Bren felt the weight of the moment. He looked to Leary, who stood beside him, calm and strong. The clearing was filled with many faces, some human, some Aerie, all watching and waiting. The elders spoke first, sharing stories of the moon and its life. They spoke of respect, balance, and the sacred bond that connected all living things. Then the humans spoke. Marla, Bren's friend, stood forward. "We came here with questions and tools." But now we see that the answers are not just in science. They are in understanding and caring. The crowd listened quietly. Leary stepped forward and held out her hand to Bren. Together, she said, we can build a future where both our peoples grow, where the bond between us is a promise of peace. Bren took her hand and smiled. We will protect this world, not just with machines, but with hearts. The leaders nodded. Agreements were made to protect the forest and share knowledge. New paths were open for friendship and learning. After the meeting, Bren and Leary walked to the pool where they first met. The water shimmered softly in the sunlight. I never imagined this when I first came here. Bren said, I thought this place was just another world to explore. Now, I see it as so much more. Leary smiled. The bond shows us what is hidden, the life that cannot be taken by force. Bren knelt and touched the water. It was cool and clear. I will carry this promise with me wherever I go. Leary placed her hand on his shoulder. And I will carry your hope. The days that followed were filled with new discoveries. The humans learned the songs of the forest and the language of light that the Aerie used to communicate. The Aerie learned about human tools that could help protect, not harm. Bren and Leary worked together to teach and guide. Their bond was a bridge between two ways of life. One evening, as the sky turned purple and stars began to twinkle, Bren and Leary sat quietly. The forest was alive with soft lights and gentle sounds. Leary asked, what do you see when you look at the stars now? Bren smiled. I see a future where we belong to this place, where humans and Aerie are not so different. Leary's eyes shone. That is the power of the bond. They sat side by side, watching the sky. The wind carried the whispers of the forest, gentle and kind. Months passed. The dome became a place where humans and Aerie shared stories, science, and dreams. The forest flourished, untouched by machines. Children of both peoples played together, learning from each other. Bren and Leary's bond remained strong, a symbol of hope and trust. One morning, Bren woke to find a small flower blooming outside his window. It glowed softly with the same light he had seen in the forest. He smiled, knowing the bond had changed not only his heart, but the future of two worlds. As the sun set on Tenera, Bren whispered to Leary, thank you for asking me to form a bond. It has changed everything. Leary's voice was soft and clear. And thank you for saying yes. Together, they looked at the stars. In a soft whisper, the promise of a new dawn carried across the moon. Two worlds, once strangers, had found a way to live as one.